Hey guys, it's Chris from Highline Guitars, and you're watching another episode from the Luthier's Workbench. In this episode, I am going to do a quick review of Crystalac's Brite Tone instrument finish, which is now available in a matte sheen. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about pot. I know pot is legal here in Colorado, and its legality is starting to spread nationwide. But I'm not talking about that kind of pot. I'm talking about this kind of pot, or also known as a potentiometer. This is the control we use to adjust the volume and the tone on our electric guitars. And I have some thoughts about them, so I'm going to talk about them. Let's get started. So the folks at Crystalac have come out with a new version of their Brite Tone top coat instrument finish. And previously it was only available in a high gloss, but now they have it in a matte sheen, and I also believe they have it in a satin sheen as well. I'm not absolutely certain about that. You'll have to check their website and see what they're offering. But I know they have the matte sheen, and I've had a chance to spray some test pieces, and I've also sprayed an entire guitar. And I'm happy to say that I'm really delighted with how this product performs, and I'm also really relieved. And the reason is I've wanted to do really flat matte finishes for a long time. A finish that's not going to reflect anything, any kind of light or any of the surroundings. I wanted something that would lay down a nice protective matte finish. And I had some difficulty initially finding a product that would do this, and I came across General Finishes Flat Out Flat Top Coat, and it's a water-based product. So I thought, well, let's give this a try, and I sprayed some test pieces and was really happy with the results. So then I sprayed a guitar itself. Well, during the assembly process of that guitar, I discovered that the General Finishes Flat Out Flat has a tendency to scratch really easily. And the real problem with that is those scratches, they appear kind of a white, and they tend to chip and crack around the edges of it. And this is really noticeable over anything that is anything other than a really bright white finish. So I was a little disappointed that it would scratch so easily. And I thought, well, maybe that's just one of the inherent problems with these really flat curing clear coats. So about the same time, I discovered that Crystalac was putting out this Brite Tone in a matte finish. And I thought, we got to give this a try, because I've been so happy with how Crystalac's Brite Tone, their gloss product, cures out and finishes. It's without a doubt the most durable clear coat that I've come across, water-based clear coat that I've come across. In fact, this guitar over here uses the gloss, and it buffed out absolutely gorgeous, and it's quite scratch resistant. It's very clear, it doesn't turn yellow, and it's easy to apply. So I thought, well, let's give this matte a try. So I got I think this is what, about a quart or a pint, not really sure. And I think it's a pint. And I sprayed a couple of test pieces and was really happy with how those performed. And I actually did some scratch testing on those test pieces, which I should have done with the General Finishes product, but and I didn't. I just did assume that the General Finishes would perform as well as some of their other water-based products, which seem to have reasonable durability. But I ended up testing out the Brite Tone matte finish, doing some scratches on test pieces, and was amazed at how durable it is. It has every bit as much durability as the gloss. So I went ahead and I sprayed this guitar, and I'm really happy with the outcome. Now, spraying a matte finish, it's pretty much the same as spraying a gloss finish. The only difference is you don't want to spray as many coats. And the reason for that is the flattening agent that they put in to make the product cure with a matte sheen, if you put too many coats on, it starts to obscure the details of what lies underneath. So think of it as like putting a sheet of tracing paper over a photograph. You can see that photograph coming through the tracing paper, but if you put down 3 sheets of tracing paper, that photograph becomes harder to see. And the more sheets you stack up on it, the harder it is to see, and eventually you can't see that image at all. Well, it's the same is true with a matte finish. If you spray too many coats, the details that are underneath begin to obscure and become harder to see. So I generally try to spray a minimum of 3 coats to get good even coverage, but no more than 5 coats. And my goal is to always have that last coat lay down as perfect as possible with no dust, no lint, nothing. I want an absolutely smooth finish, because if I'm able to achieve that, I have nothing left to do. I don't have to do any level sanding. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is assemble the guitar and it's done. Well, in that respect, I highly recommend, if you're looking for a dead flat matte finish, I would give the Brite Tone and a matte sheen a test, because I think you'll find its durability is every bit as good as the gloss, and on par with that of the other clear coat products we tend to use, like nitrocellulose and polyurethane. So there you have it. Crystalac Brite Tone instrument finish and a matte sheen. I give it 2 thumbs up. Okay, now it's time for a brief yet frank discussion about pot. Yeah, potentiometers. For years, I have been using CTS brand pots in all my guitars. And I think the reason I was using CTS pots in the beginning was because they have a really great reputation, and you see them used on a lot of high-end guitars. However, over the years, I haven't been really happy with the way in which CTS pots transition, for example, with tone from bright to warm or bright to dark. I found that no matter how I would wire my pots, as I would turn the knob, the CTS pots tend to act more like an on-off switch. So as I would turn the knob, all of a sudden, my signal would go from a nice bright tone to a warm or dark tone, just just like that. I mean, there was no gradual transition. And no matter how I wired it, that's always how it was. Volume is seems to work a little bit better. But with tone, I never was really happy with how the CTS pots would make that transition. And I use audio taper pots in all my guitars. I just like the way that transition, the way it sounds to my ears. It's that gradual transition, rather than having the transition happen either at one end of the spectrum or the other. It's just a gradual all the way through the sweep of turning the knob. So what I did was I started testing other pots, and I tested Alpha and I tested Borns. And what I came away with is I've decided that on all my guitars going forward, I'm going to be using Borns pots. And the reason I like the Borns is, even though I wire them exactly the same way I do my CTS pots, I have a very gradual transition from bright to warm or dark as I turn the knob. There's no sudden change, and I really like that feature with the Borns pots. I also like the fact that the shafts on a Borns pot turn so much easier. In terms of the ease of turning the knob, I think Borns are the easiest by far. CTS would be second, and then Alpha is probably the hardest. Alpha is great if it has that feel like on a really high-end stereo, the way the knob feels when you turn it. And I think if you're the sort of guitar player that is concerned about setting your guitar for a certain tone and then having that change either because of moving the guitar or handling the guitar. Alpha might be the way to go, but you're going to need 2 fingers to turn that knob. If you're the sort of guitar player that likes to roll off the volume or the tone with just your pinky, and you're playing in a hot environment under stage lights and you get sweaty hands, Borns are the way to go because they turn so easy. It's just a flick of the finger and you can turn the volume up and down. So for that reason, I'm just going to be using Borns exclusively on all my guitars. I just like the way they feel. And of course, anybody who buys my guitars, if they want something different, it's easy enough to change a pot. Another thing I have done is I've noticed on guitars that I've built in the past that used concentric pots. Now, that concentric pot is a pot where you can combine tone and volume into one potentiometer instead of having 2. That's a great way to save space. But every guitar that I have built that uses concentric pots, the owners have complained about how those pots perform. They just don't like the way they work. And I have tested out different concentric pots, and I have tried to get a combination or a pot that would actually do what it's supposed to do the way I want it to do it. And I just haven't been able to find one. So for the time being, I've decided I'm just not going to mess with the concentric pot anymore. They just aren't doing what I would like them to do, and it seems like the customers feel the same way. So I'm just going to continue to use a separate pot for volume and tone. And I'll keep my eyes out for a concentric pot that I haven't tested, and maybe I'll come across something that works the way it should. And if I do encounter something like that, I'll let you know. And of course, there's the push pulls, the push push, the kill switch pots. There's a whole variety of them out there, and I don't really use a lot of those personally. Occasionally, they come up in custom builds, but for the most part, I don't. And maybe down the road, I'll get more into a discussion about those kind of pots if I'm going to be using them on a future build. But otherwise, nah, I'm not going to mess with them. So that's basically all I've got for this episode. I hope that you have a great weekend, a great week ahead, and you can maybe spend some time working on your own guitar projects. At any rate, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, the whole drill. And I'll put some links to products I've talked about in the description below, so you can go and check them out yourself. And until the next episode, or till my next Quick Tips episode, I will see you soon.